we bring in former Assistant Secretary for the Department of Homeland Security and ABC News contributor Elizabeth Neumann. Elizabeth, thank you so much for joining us. What ostensibly is Israel's goal here with these fresh attacks?
Look, there's a well-known, understood approach in the Middle East that you have to respond to force with force, and while that might not be what America wants to see Israel do, it is kind of the MO of the Middle East. And so it's not surprising to see that Israel has responded. It might actually be a little surprising that they seem to have responded as little as they did compared to what Iran did last weekend. What Iran did was just unprecedented in 40 years of hostility. They broke all of the rules that have governed the shadow war that these two hostile entities, Iran and Israel, have operated by for the last 40 years. And so it could have been much worse in a sense of they were justified in something that was comparable to what we saw Iran do. But so far, and we still don't know everything. We're still waiting on confirmation on potential happenings in other parts of the region. But so far, it looks very measured what we saw happen tonight. And we don't know exactly what the targets are. We don't know about casualties yet. But compared to at least the numbers that we saw from Iran last week, this is very small. So that's maybe a bit of good news, though I think many were hoping that we might move back to shadow war, right? Like so that Israel might respond, but in a way that we didn't know it was Israel, that we didn't know that it was in response to what had happened last weekend. So it's still a very concerning moment. As the general just said, wait 72 hours. There's a lot we don't know. Will Iran retaliate? Are we going to just see this continue to escalate? That is very concerning if it does. We really are in an unprecedented moment, and it is a precarious moment for the world, including the U.S. homeland.
You used words like small and measured with regard to the response from Israel tonight. I'm curious what we do know about the response.
Look, we see an attack in Iran. There are reports that there might be other attacks in other parts of the region, but we don't have confirmation yet that that was in fact Israel. And in the fog of war, it is difficult to know what is on the ground, what is actual fact and what might be fodder or what might be speculation. So we really are in kind of a wait and see mode. But when I say small and measured, what I mean is the number of missiles launched or airplanes launched, or in the case of Iran, with the number of drones that they launched. What they launched was rather unprecedented, and we heard last weekend how surprised the U.S. government was, Israel was. Certainly when I was hearing the tallies come in, this was not what we expected. We expected a few missiles, maybe some drones. We weren't expecting 300, right? Like in many ways, what happened last weekend not only was surprising that it was coming directly from Iran and no longer the proxies, but just the sheer size of the attack. What we have here tonight appears to be much more targeted. The volume of actual firepower seems to be lower, but we don't know, we don't fully understand the actual impact. We don't know what they targeted. We don't know what the outcome might be if there are any casualties. So it could still be a sizable response based on that impact. I'm just really more talking about the volume of firepower that we have so far, what we know happened tonight.
Understood. I've talked to people who have said, you know, are we on the precipice of World War III? Do you think that questions like that, comments like that are hyperbole, or do you feel like we're inching closer to that reality?
I mean, look, history teaches us that small little miscommunications, small tit for tats can result in World War. That's what World War I was. So it's not hyperbole to be concerned about that. I do think it's important for us to learn from history so that as we're discussing this and discussing, you know, possible off ramps, I think that's most people's goal is how do we off ramp from this escalatory violence that we're seeing. it's not to say that we don't need to hold the line. I think there's an argument, and perhaps this is where Israel is coming from, that when you have Iran disrupt kind of 40 years of this is our MO, this is the way that we fight against each other, and it's in the shadows, and it's through proxies, and it's not directly from one territory to another. When such a setting is disrupted, that you kind of need to reset and you need to push back enough so that they know they can't do that again.